Uh-oh.
Audio coming through.
Yep.
Looks like everybody's muted, though. I'm not sure. I heard that earlier when Michelle was talking. Somebody was talking over her.
All right. Hi, Brian. Welcome. I hope it's maybe a little warmer in North Dakota than it is down here. But all right, welcome everybody. We're going to continue on with the collaboration track and welcoming Shari Oswald, and she's going to be talking specifically about the 3 C's of Microsoft Teams, and she's going to give you a little bit more detail what those C's are and how they affect you. But just a couple reminders. Number one, I am recording this session so that for posterity reasons. Make sure that you're muted throughout the presentation. I'll also be checking to make sure, but just make sure you do that automatically. Any questions or comments, throw them in the chat. Raise your hand. You know, Shari loves that kind of interaction. If you want to be able to, you know, talk with her, come off mute, you can do that. If you need the live captioning, don't do that. Also, please ask the questions. We'll be picking from anybody who asks questions. We'll be picking the $25 gift card from there, and then make sure you guys do the survey. I'll throw the link into the survey. Make sure you guys do that. And it looks like we're also from Quebec City and Dallas and Southern Minnesota. And wow, we're all over the place. Shari, you got a crew here.
I like it. All the places I'm missing. I love Quebec.
No kidding, especially the Dallas one. All right, Shari, it's all over to you.
Thank you. Funny story from Quebec. I took 3 years of French in high school. My husband and I spent 32 days in Europe in 2017. And before we went there, I told him, hey, if we go to France, I got it. I took 3 years of French in high school. I got this. And the first thing I said to the person checking me at the hotel was, comment vas-tu? And they went, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I got nothing. I was like, okay, I really overestimated my high school French. All right, so thank you all. Thank you, Don, for your support and your help and all your hard work putting the event together. We appreciate that so much. If you haven't already, make sure that you use your social media and let people know about the event. I know I spoke yesterday and actually 2 days ago with the Teams Day Online, and I'm seeing some familiar names, so I'm hoping the word got out from there as well. These community events are very important, and I'm excited to present with you here today. And with that in mind, we want to thank our sponsors. These events do not happen without the sponsors. And as someone who speaks at a lot of the community events, we see the same sponsors in multiple events. So want to thank them so much for their support. Appreciate that they continue to, even though we're not in person and they don't get the same exposure maybe as having a table in the lobby or something. We're glad they're here and thank them for their support as well. All right, so today we're going to talk about the 3 C's of Microsoft Teams. I have formulas when I'm a trainer, so by trade, and I really actually hate the term training because to me it's like you train somebody to do something and they can repeat it, but I want to take people beyond that. I want them to learn and grow and use that as a foundation to build their knowledge and not just be able to repeat what I do. So whenever I do training, it's not just like click steps. It's more of a contextual. Let's get into the why. Let's get into the how this makes your life easier. And in doing that, I came up with the 3 C's of Microsoft Teams to kind of help you understand that Teams does more than you think. Okay. All right, so a little bit about me. I'm Shari Oswald. They call me Shortcut Shari. It was a joke and it kind of stuck. I embraced it and branded it, and now it's my Twitter, it's my Facebook, it's my LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to me on any of those avenues. I also have a blog. And I do Tip Tuesdays. So every Tuesday I post a video tip. Right now I'm doing a series on task management. So if you're, confused or frustrated, when do I use Outlook? When do I use To Do? And when do I use Planner to manage my tasks? That's what my whole series is about right now. Right. I'm also an author on LinkedIn Learning. I have 3 SharePoint courses. They deprecated one of them. It kind of outlived its life. So if you actually, this is the one to deprecate. I need to change my screenshot. There are some amazing courses on there. If you would like a free trial, feel free to go to that URL right there and check it out. It is case sensitive. And so feel free to check that out if you're interested in some of the courses that are there. I also highly recommend anything by Bill Coulterman and Jenny Von Coulter. They're awesome. And then if you're a OneNote person or not a OneNote person, you want to be, Heather Severino, she's got some great content out there as well. All right, I also have a free trial of the PowerBytes portal, and we have a online on-demand training portal for everything soup to nuts in Office 365. I'm an author in that portal as well. If you want to, and I'll put this up again at the end if you like, I'm offering a free 10-day trial on that platform if you want to see what it looks like and see if it'll help you, or if there's just like, I just want to know how to use OneNote, or I just want to know how to use bookings. This is where you might go and look for that content. Okay. All right, so 3 C's of Microsoft Teams are communication, collaboration, and content or content creation. So when we're talking about Teams, Dawn and I were kind of talking about this before we started, that especially in the last year, people have been IT kind of lobbed it over the fence, Microsoft Teams, and said, here, use this to have your meetings, use this to chat. I worked extensively with the federal government last year, including Special Operations Command, the CDC, the FDC, because they were thrown into the deep end of the pool and they did not know what they were, how to use the technology. They were kind of at a loss because they didn't have that heads up. In a perfect world, you would have an adoption strategy. You would get people excited about it. And that's what I'm passionate about, is not just giving them a tool and telling them where to click, but giving them the why. As adults, and if you're familiar with adult learning theory, we call it what's in it for me. We can't just teach people things. They need to know why. And, for me, my biggest thing, my love language, if you want to call it that, is don't waste my time. And I try to take everything from that perspective. So give me the quick and dirty and tell me why it helps me and changes my day, changes my life, makes my life easier. Don't just tell me, click here, do this, do that. So that is the context from today. We're going to talk about why you might want to communicate, why you're going to collaborate, and where your content is stored and shared in Microsoft Teams. Okay. So communication. Microsoft has 3 types of communication in Microsoft Teams. So you have calls, you have chat, and you have posts. And this is how, we're kind of replacing email. And I like to kind of take you back to email because that's been our traditional means of communicating with people, and give it a little bit of a comparison on that. I have a demo environment. This is my lovely Megan Bowen, and I'm going to go over to her Outlook and just kind of give you a little kind of a connection as to why you might want to start changing the way you communicate using Teams instead of Outlook. If you have Microsoft Teams deployed, you're probably getting a lot of notifications, and it can get overwhelming. I have one client that they have created a team for their entire organization. They have a channel for each function of the organization, and everybody is posting in that. And guess what? People are tuning that out because that's the equivalent of our inbox and how that used to be. I don't know anyone that goes home crying at the end of the day because they don't get enough email. And now we're doing the same thing to each other in Teams. So we need to use the right communication tool for the right purpose. And sometimes that's still Outlook. So Outlook, I've seen many organizations are now adopting the strategy that anything that's external happens in Outlook. So if you're working with people outside your organization, they're going to communicate in Outlook. Otherwise, they're going to communicate using Teams if it's internal. Now, if you have the hybrid, let's say you have a project that's got internal and external, that's a whole nother thing, and that's a topic for another day. So just to kind of make some connections, when Outlook has been used traditionally, we get everything from everybody about every topic coming into one place. And it's up to us to make sense of it. It's up to us to manage that. We have maybe, Alex is asking me about the spring blog. And then I've got stuff here about, travel times from the airlines. I've got something from one of my clients for Topspin Toys. Now, this content, in order for me to make sense of it, because I work in manageable pieces. I can't take this whole inbox. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to add folders. So I might want a new folder called travel. And I'm going to put the travel stuff there. Maybe payroll is another one. So I'm going to add a new folder and I'm going to call it payroll. Now I have an entire course that I did, or a series that's on my YouTube channel about how to manage your inbox and triage your inbox. If you're interested in that, feel free to check it out. But this is part of that. You know, how do I put this in manageable pieces? I'm going to take these emails and put them, let's say this is a client communication. Maybe I'm going to add that to a folder over here. I have to organize it so I can put it in context. Okay. Now let's translate that to Teams. In Teams, that context happens in the folders. So in the folders here are the equivalent of the channels in Teams. So if I'm going to have a conversation about design, I'm going to do it in the design channel. That way, anybody who's focusing on design can go there and get caught up. If I'm talking about the digital assets web, then I'm going to go and have that conversation in the digital assets web. So these are the posts that we have within Microsoft Teams. Now, there is a couple of levels and audiences and Teams that we have to consider and who we're communicating with. In Outlook, it's everybody, internal, external, whatever project you're working on, and it comes at me whenever they feel like communicating with me. In Teams, if I am having these conversations in channels, I can see the notifications. They're bold. The channels are bold, so I can see the activity. And I also see the uptick in the activity, seeing the 2s and the 1s, seeing what is going on there. I also get my activity feed on the left-hand side. So when I am ready to go get caught up on the go-to-market plan, I can go to the go-to-market plan, not when they're ready, right? And if somebody needs my attention, they're going to need to use @mention to get me looped into that to make sure that I see it more actively. For those of you that are new to Microsoft Teams, this left-hand panel overhand that we called it the rail, the left rail, my triage system that I use for my email, I use the same thing in Teams, and I start at the activity at the top. So I can see right away anybody who's mentioned me. If you've ever, you're like, okay, I only want to see the ones where somebody called me out by name, then I'm going to go into the feed and I'm going to filter it for mentions. These are the people that mention me by name. So I'm going to hit these first. Then I might go in and see where somebody has reacted to something that I said, and I'm going to review those. This helps me kind of start whittling away at the content. Now I'm going to give you my favorite. Usually I leave this for the end, but here's the best kept secret of Outlook. That's a lot of clicks to go in here, pick the feed, go and click here and click filter, and then decide which filter and pick the filter. That's a lot of clicks. Up here at the top, if you press the / key, and I'm just going to move this little thing out of the way. Oops. Notice it says look for messages or files, and people just say, oh, search, and they don't look at the rest of this little prompt. Or type / for a list of commands. So I'm going to type / and type in mentions and hit enter. What that does is it takes me to the feed and filters it by mentions. If I do / unread and hit enter, it takes me to the feed and shows me my items that are unread. So if you look at the little / key right here, there's unread, there are mentions, there are the activity. So some of those are activity related, but also they can help you change your status. So if you're, working remotely, people can't see you're not at your desk. Maybe you just want to let them know that you're out of the vicinity of your desk /BRB and hit enter. And it puts me into be right back status. Keeping in mind that when you set your status manually, you have to go back and reset it, or else it will be on that status indefinitely. So I'm going to go back and change it to reset so it starts reading my calendar again. All right, so communications posting in your Teams channel is the equivalent of emailing and having to put things in folders. So how do we make sure that people see what we want them to see? So I'm going to start with the communication on the team level. Again, you're going to pick your team and your channel, and then you're going to, let's say I want to start a new conversation about the go-to-market plan. I'm going to say, I could just say, hey, does anyone have the graphics for the PowerPoint. What's the likelihood of people paying attention to that if they're getting, like this had 46 items in my activity feed? Are they going to notice that it turned bold? Are they going to notice there's little indicators? Maybe not. If I know that there's a specific person that would have that, maybe the design or group or the design team might have those, then I might want to be a little more specific in my communication. So instead, I might say, hey, at, let's say, digital assets, do you have the product images for the, and I might even want to attach or create a link to the document that I'm speaking about. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say it's under my teams and channels. And let's say it's this Contoso marketing principles and share the link. Then people don't have to guess what I'm talking about. I'm directing it to a specific group in the team and asking them for their assistance. You know, you don't want to say, hey, you know, this is too vague, right? Give them specific information. Now, in Outlook, had I done that, I would have sent out an email. And let's see, how many people are in this team? So if I manage the team and look at the members, there are 19 people in this team. If I were to go out to my email and send out an email that said, hey, you know, does anybody have the product images for the PowerPoint? I'm going to get 19 responses to that. And likely somebody else is going to go in and respond back to them. So I just blew up my inbox in Outlook because I asked one question. And if you watched Matt Wade's keynote, he's saying, use the thumbs up. Maybe I'm just going to acknowledge that I saw it. So people know, hey, out of the 19 people in here, you know, people say they do or they don't. I wish they would add a thumbs down, you know, so that you can say yes or no. Product team, can we add that too? Some really great emojis in here, but you could also, here's another little trick. They call me Shortcut Shari, remember? Window period. Window period is a shortcut in any Windows application that brings up the emoji picker. So I could just go in and say, okay, or if I want the thumbs down, here's the thumbs down. And send that off, right? Again, just a quick reaction, letting them know that I saw it and acknowledging that they said something, okay? So even if there's not an emoji for it, I mean, they can't give us the emoji picker here, but we got all we need from the emoji picker in the Windows period shortcut. All right, so communication in channels. If I want to communicate to the whole team, then I would use the @mention for the Mark8 project team. If I want to direct a specific person, then I'm going to do an @mention for that person. So use the @mention strategically. And as Matt said, part of the etiquette is don't blast everything to the whole team, because just like Outlook, people are going to start to tune it out. It's too much. Okay. Now, how do you control the communication that's coming into you? How do you make sure that you're paying attention from the team's level of what's going on? First and foremost, rearrange your teams in the order that you work on the most and what's most important to you. Did you know you can just click and drag to reorder your teams? So if I don't work on this project maybe I'm, kind of falling off this project, or this is a peripheral team, great, I'm going to put it at the bottom. You can also hide a team. There's a difference between leaving a team. So if you're done with a team, you can leave a team. If you don't own it, you can leave it and say, bye-bye, I'm not part of this anymore. Or it's kind of like the opt-out. Or you can hide. Maybe I'm the SOC team. I'm just going to hide this team. It puts it under a special group here at the bottom called Hidden Teams. I'm still a part of it. I can still customize my notifications. So if there's only one channel in that team that I care about, I can change the channel notifications for that team or for that channel so that I get more actively notified when things are happening there. Okay. You can also hide the channels. the channels are in alphabetical order, except for the general channel, which is at the top. Everything else should be in alphabetical order. We can't reorder those, but we can, if you want to, change the notifications. I can turn off notifications for that. And if you notice that little note here, it says, accept direct replies or personal mentions. So again, the people that are working together, this has to be your understanding. You have to come to an understanding as a group saying, hey, I'm only going to respond in this group if you mention me, and let people know. All right. So the ability to go in and manage your channels, manage your mentions. You can even hide a channel. So if I'm not involved in this one, I can hide that channel. That way it will narrow down your team's pain, which is a P-A-N-E, but can very quickly become a P-A-I-N unless you manage that correctly. So that's communication in teams, teams and channels. Any questions or comments on that? Adam, you may have just showed me a new shortcut. Windows semicolon does it too? It sure does. Very cool. Thank you. All right. Any comments or questions? Epiphanies. We love those. Okay. Now, the other level of communication happens in the chat. So chat, again, Don and I were talking before we started here. The one thing I disagree with what Matt, when the whole time he was talking, I'm like, amen, my brother. He is preaching what I've been trying to say forever. And Matt keeps it real. And both of us, I mean, I'm all in Microsoft. I don't have an Apple collection like he has. But Matt is, he speaks the truth. And it's those of us out in the real world trying to use these tools, not the ones that have just drunk the Kool-Aid, right? All right, so chat. Chat is intended to be quick communications. And the way I think of chat, I think of like texting back and forth on your phone. And I don't know about you, but I have that friend. I'll text them something, they'll text me back, and then they start texting me a novel, right? So your chats are meant to be quick interactions and quick answers. Now, a couple of etiquette things. Let's say I need something from Nestor. I'm going to create a new chat right here and say Nestor. So pick him. Now, etiquette. Would you ever in the real world walk up to somebody's desk, slam a file down and say, pay attention to me right now? No, that's not nice. So when you are initiating a chat with somebody, I'm going to give you 3 tips. Ask them, tell them what you need. Greet them first, right? Greet them, tell them what you need, and give them a reasonable amount of time that you expect from them. Because if I say, hey, and Nestor says, hey, that's a complete waste of both of our time, right? Hey, again, my love language, don't waste my time. So if I say, hey, Nestor, can you help me? So I'm going to say, Nestor, good morning. By even mentioning him in the chat, it's going to generate an activity for him so that he sees it maybe twice, right? And make sure he sees it. Good morning or good afternoon, if I could spell. Do you have about 10 minutes to help me with a presentation? So I'm giving him a reasonable amount of time, because if I say, hey, do you have a minute? And then and he says yes, and I talk his ear off for 45 minutes, that's not fair. That's not really fair, right? So I'm going to send a little chat to him, see if he responds. And I've got Nestor open on another machine. So he's going to go over to Teams. Or Teams on the desktop might be faster. There we go. It says Megan mentioned me in a chat with Megan. So the notification came up. So that is an active notification, even though I'm directing a chat to him and I get a little option on the chat bubble because I mentioned his name, he gets the pop-up banner too. So I'm going to go over to chat and I say, sure. Send me a link. All right. So I'm communicating with him. Now, if this becomes a novel, at any point, we can escalate this to an audio call, just like on the phone. Don't send me a novel. Can we just talk? Because it'll be a lot faster if we can just talk this out, right? In my best New York accent up there. Let's just talk. So you can escalate it to an audio call or a video call. This is a remote environment that doesn't have a camera plugged in, so it doesn't enable it here, but you should have a camera as well. And if I need to loop somebody else in, I can add additional people. So this is a one-on-one chat between Nestor and myself. If I need to have somebody else, maybe I want to bring Patty into it. All right, so now I've got a chat with Megan and Patty. This is called a chat group. So when you're chatting one-on-one with somebody, that's kind of like I said, walking up to somebody's desk and asking them for their help. When you have a chat group, you basically create a little space, like a conference room. Hey, let's go sit in the conference room. We don't get to keep that conference room. We're just gonna, kind of have it on the side for us to work in. And I have Megan and Patty in there. Now let's look at what it did on Megan's side of things. I'm gonna go to chat. And here's my item with Nestor. Oh, sorry. There has to be activity for it to show up. 1 second. Looping in Patty. Right. And so now I've got this chat group. These are informal groups of people. These are not your standard items. So when Matt was talking earlier about collaborating on a document, the one thing I disagreed with him was that you should not share and collaborate in OneDrive or in chat, because there is a place for it. You don't, and that's one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen in the deployment of teams in the last 2 years, especially, is that people think they want to have a conversation, so they create a team. They want to share a file, so they create a team. I don't have to have a team to work on a file with somebody. I can work on it here. The difference is you have to understand where those files are stored. And sometimes we just need a little informal group side conversation that has nothing to do with a team. Because when you create a team, you create a SharePoint site, a planner board, an Office 365 group, an email box, and a bunch of other things that you don't need for Patty, Nestor, and I to work on a quick presentation, knock it out for next week's conference, right? So this is, those chat groups are where we get that quick informal work done with our peers, whether there are work group peers or our cross-functional peers that we may work in other areas. All right, so I'm going to talk about the collaboration here when we get to the next C, but this is the chat feature for communication. All right, so a little tip. If you have a lot of chat groups, and they could be like I have Alex, Christy, Irvin, and 3 more, well, what the heck were we working on? Once you have activity in your group, if you'll see a little pencil, and let's say this is the 2020 conference deck. I'm going to give it a name. That way I can go back and look for it later. It makes it easier for me to find and even search for it. So if I do 2020, oh, why didn't it come up? Let's do this one. Huh. Maybe the crawl hasn't happened yet. These demo environments sometimes crawl. You should be able to search for and find that easily using that name later. Another tip with your teams, your chat panel, you cannot reorder them like you can in Teams. But if you pin one, so if I pin one to the top, let's say this is another one that's very active, because eventually every meeting I have is going to have a chat associated with it. Every single interaction that I have with people is going to have this chat panel. If I want to dock those at the top, I'm going to pin them. Once they're pinned, you can reorder them. So you can put your most active ones at the top there. All right, so communication between your communication with posts, chat, and then let's talk about calls. So calls are done in your call option. Calls, depending on what you have configured and what license you have, you may have the ability to call people outside of your organization. but that does require a special license. So creating a call, I can at any point, if like I mentioned with the chat, I can convert it to a call if I need to. But if I just need to call somebody, I'm going to call, let's call Nestor. And there he is. And then I can call him. Generates an audio feature. And that's very unhappy because I'm logged in as both people right now. So if Nestor were to answer, we would have be able to talk to and call and work on it on something together if we needed to. Okay. So use the calling feature if you need to talk to somebody either directly from the chat or from here. Now, again, the slash at the top, if I do /call and hit tab, I can call Nestor from here too. I don't have to go to calls, search for him and find it. I can do it right from here, or I can also use that box to do a /chat, tab, Nestor, tab, and say hi. And I am in a chat with Nestor. So use that, again, that little quick box at the top. All right, so communication, calls, chat, and posts. All right, talk about collaboration. Collaboration is getting work done together, and that involves usually at the highest level, documentation, task management, and data and reporting. So documentation is probably the biggest miss on most of the organizations that have released teams, at least in my space, in the last 1.5 to 2 years. They focus on the calls, the chat, and the posts, but they forget about the documentation. And I want to take a little step back and talk about how Teams is structured, just to give you an idea of why and where you're going to create this content. So in Teams, oops, that's me. Let's go back to my demo. All right, so Teams, let's talk about how teams are structured. When you are creating your team, there's knowing how it all fits together is the key to planning that, and how it all fits together is what's going to make it successful or what it's going to make it fail. All right, so I have what I call the who, the what, and the how of teams. The who is the channel, or the team. So the who is who needs to work together. The channels are the what are they working on? What are the areas of focus? And the tabs across the top are how are we going to get that work done? So here we have the Mark 8 project team. Here are the different work streams in that project. And then each one of those channels has its own set of tabs. Those default tabs are posts, which is our communication, the files, which is where we collaborate, and then the creation of content is also, part of the files and the other content. So if I need to have a project tracking, for an example, here's where I might track the tasks that are going on within Teams. Now, here is the biggest misunderstanding in Teams. Nothing actually lives in Teams. All of these little widgets, tabs, tools, whatever you want to call them, are coming from somewhere else. And let's talk about where those come from. So I'm going to go back out to my Office 365, click my waffle button. My hashtag is where's the waffle because I love the waffle. I'm going to go ahead and click all apps here, or if you go to the bottom of the panel, oops, let's go to all apps. I'm in Delve, so it doesn't have the toolbar I'm looking for. Oops. Let's do all apps. Oh, nope. Wrong little box. All right, let's try that again. I'm going to go home. At the bottom, there's this little icon that takes you to the all apps window. So this is all of the apps that are available to you in your organization, which may be different than what you're seeing now because I have a demo environment that has absolutely everything installed, okay? So when you're talking apps, kind of think about the apps on your phone. Your phone is the device, right, that you access all of this content from. But in here, I have apps. Now, I'm not talking about Candy Crush and those. I'm talking about my travel apps when I used to travel all the time. There's an app for lists. There's an app for my calendar. There's an app for my phone where I can call people. That's the same thing here. Microsoft gives us the device that has all the apps installed and then gives us one central place to access them and bring them all together, which is Teams. So, the equivalent is if I had, back in the day, we used to have, your BlackBerry, right, that helped manage your content. But then if you wanted to call somebody, you had to go get a phone and call somebody. If you want to take a picture, you'd have to go get your camera. Right now we have it all in one place. So your Teams is kind of like that roll up, like your phone is for the apps. So where does that content live when you're working in Teams? Where does where the files live? The most common question I get is, what do I put in OneDrive? What do I put in SharePoint? And what do I put in Teams? Well, I can take one of those away from you because nothing actually lives in Teams. The only places that files are stored in Office 365 is OneDrive and SharePoint. That's it. Everything else is an app. We have like, Stream, OneNote, right? But even OneNote, when you create a OneNote notebook, it's stored in either OneDrive or SharePoint. When I create a Word file, it's either stored in either OneDrive or SharePoint. And it depends on where you created it and where you shared it as to where it lives. Okay, so when we're talking about documentation in Teams, I'm going to go back to Teams here, go into my Mark 8 project team, go to my general channel, and then click the files option. There are no files here. So notice that. If I go into design and go to files, there are files here. So if I notice that it says open in SharePoint, when you create a team, it creates a SharePoint site behind the scenes, which is an entire workspace that you can build out for whatever you need. So under documents, if I go back to documents, when you create a channel in a team, it creates a folder that corresponds with that channel name in the document library behind the scenes. This is important to know because there's a one-to-one correlation. So if I were to go in here and say, I want to have the product specifications, maybe I want my worksheets in here, and I create a folder in here, guess what? It does not create a channel in Teams. So you have to be very careful because somebody else may want to go to Teams and create the same channel, and now you've created a conflicting folder. So when you, I'm actually building an entire course on document management strategy, which is my session that's after this one, is kind of based on that course. But this is a big issue because people stick files in here. Where are those files in Teams? People aren't going to be able to find them because they're not in a channel. They're not in a folder. So you either work from SharePoint, or you can work for Teams, either way, but you need to be aware of where those files are being stored and how they're being organized, whether you did it or not. So people sticking files here, they probably should have put them into the general channel. So I'm just going to move these. And I love that you can now drag and drop. You don't have to do this whole move thing in here anymore. All right, so there's my general channel. If I go back to Teams now and go back to the general channel and look in the files, you'll see here's all of those files that were probably lost and people couldn't find them. Okay, so just keep that in mind when I add or create a file. So if I upload a new file in here, and let's say it's this one. It's uploading it into SharePoint. Okay. Just another quick pro tip. There's a lot of functionality for managing your documents in SharePoint. It's been around for 20 years. It's very mature and very robust. Teams is not. Teams is a baby. And you'll see that we have a very short list of what we can do. I can't see the version history. I can't create workflows around it from Teams, but guess what? Doesn't live in Teams. It lives in SharePoint. So if I go out here and look at the same documents and I need to see the version history, I can view the version history from here. I can create workflows around it from here. I can change the access from here. Okay, so collaboration, your documentation in Teams is in SharePoint. So if I go into documents for chat, let's look at that. Remember my chat, and Mr. Nestor asked me to upload or send a link on that file, this one. I'm going to add a file my two options here are OneDrive and upload from my computer. So if I have a file in OneDrive and I want him to be able to work on that with me. So again, this is again that peer-to-peer, short-term, I just need him to help out on a file and knock it out. Him and Patty, we're going to work on something for next week. I don't need the whole peanut gallery. I don't need a whole team. I don't need a channel of a team. I just need some place for us to collaborate. So I'm going to go ahead and click and send this off. So they have that document. And it says I've shared it. Now I shared it from OneDrive. So let's go back to OneDrive. And here's that same file. When you share a file in Teams or in the chat in Teams, it automatically updates the sharing and changes the permissions. So that's something important to note. When you're working on those files together, you've just given them permission, and the default permission, this is important, the default permission when you share a file is anyone with the link can edit it. Anyone with the link can edit it. That means if Patty or Nestor forward that link to somebody else, anyone can edit that file. I don't want anyone. I just want Nestor and Patty to be able to work on that with me. Don't send it out to anybody else if you don't trust them, especially. All right, so in order to prevent that, if I go back into Teams, under the little more options, ... I don't have an option to change the permission. I don't have a way of kicking them out of it if they don't want them in there anymore. I do in OneDrive. So collaborating with them, maybe I just want to say, it says anyone with a link, I can stop sharing and change that file to another file link. Okay, so I can edit this. Here's the link. Anyone can edit that one. All right, so here's Megan, Nestor, and Patty. And if I don't want them in there anymore, after they're done helping me with that file, I can click the stop sharing. Now, I wish Microsoft would change the default behavior to be that it's only specifically with the people that are in that chat. I don't have control over that, right? So I want to make you aware that that's exactly what happens. All right, now if I go back and let's say I'm going to add a file the other way, maybe as Nestor. Nestor is now here. He's in the chat and I want him to, he's going to now share a file. And this time, let's say it's on his desktop. He's been working on it on his own and he wants to share it with everybody. So he's going to go and upload that file. Click open and send. That file is now being managed from his OneDrive. So when you are in a group chat or just a one-on-one chat with somebody, whoever shared the file is the one that controls the file. So Nestor now has control. So it does not create a central workspace like Team does for your documents. Everybody's just kind of taking the content out of there. The analogy I use of OneDrive is kind of like the desk, your drawer that sits underneath your desk. Everybody kind of just takes the files out of their drawer, brings them in the conference room. We're working on it together, and they take them back and they put them back in their drawer. Right. So this does not create a shared space to store these documents. So if Nestor were to leave, guess what? The access to those files are no longer available to us. So again, I'm doing document strategy in my next session. So if you want to hear more about that, I can share more about that there. All right, so the thing in the chat that you have to be aware of, again, I can't remove the permissions from this. I uploaded it from my computer. Where did it store it? Because it wasn't in my OneDrive before, but it is now. So when you are working in Office 365, and you share a file from your computer, it has to put it in a shareable location. Your desktop is not a shareable location. So I'm going to go to OneDrive, and it puts it in this weird little folder called Microsoft Teams chat files, which very, very quickly becomes a mess Okay. I'm a filer, not a piler. My husband's a piler. That works for him. It doesn't work for me. I like things to be organized. And this, with every file that I uploaded and shared with somebody, getting thrown into one big folder doesn't help me. So here's my pro tip for you. Upload the file to OneDrive first and then share the file from there. Okay. Now, Matt alluded to this in his session about documents don't have to live here forever. Like he said, I put stuff in my OneDrive when I'm working on it, and I'm ready now to share it with other people later. I don't want people messing with it or getting a peek at what I'm working on or have an opinion by putting it in a team. I need my private workspace to work on those documents. These documents can be moved around as needed. So after I'm done with this proposed agenda topics, let's just say that we're done working on it. I'm going to go ahead and move it to, and I can pick a different place. So here's the sites that I have access to. So I'm going to say put it in the benefits and move it there. So at any point, you can move a file from one place to the other. And people ask me sometimes about copying instead of moving. Keep things as clean as possible. When you move a file in SharePoint, it maintains its version history, which is great. If you download it and upload it somewhere else, it does not maintain the version history. It's a new version of that document. So just keep that in mind. Also, if you have a version in yours, and then, the old way, when people would email you something, they would download it, and then they would have to keep track of it somewhere else, right? Then now you've got redundant copies in your own environment and who has the most recent or the right one. So I would encourage you not to keep multiple copies unless for some reason you're trying to make sure nobody screws yours up, but you can always use the version history and revert it back if you had to. Okay. All right. Can you tell that's happened to me? Like, yeah, don't mess with my stuff. All right, so communication, collaboration. Let's talk about, in collaboration, the task management. We have several ways of collaborating in tasks. I'm going to focus this one on Planner, because Planner is the tool that allows us to collaborate with other people. I can use Outlook myself. I can use To-Do myself. I have Microsoft Project, but sometimes that's overkill. But if we're trying to coordinate projects, with additional people, planners are really good option. It's like Project Light if you haven't seen it before. So here's the Mark 8 project plan. The plans are built with in the structure of buckets. So we have buckets across the top, and then we have tasks under the buckets. So for this particular project, there's 3 work streams, and here are the items that are working in there. All right. At any point, let's say the functional spec has been written and I needed a review by manufacturing. One of the things I love about Planner is everything is drag and drop. I can move it from one to the other. So buckets can be, if you think of a Kanban board, buckets can be anything you want it to be. I've seen it replace the Agile Kanban board where this bucket is the backlog. This one is the, sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. Right. We have the, you can create it as phases of a project if you want to, or in this case, who's responsible for it. So feel free to create those buckets, whatever makes sense for you, and then create the tasks. The tasks have a lot of detail around them. They have the bucket, the progress, the priority, start date, due date, notes, checklists. So if you have subtasks in there, and then if you have attachments. Now, attachments, I would highly encourage you to upload them. If you do it from your computer, it does create an attachment. I would put it in OneDrive or SharePoint or wherever those files live. So this one says from Team Files. Finally, thank you so much. Encouraging people to put the files in a shared place and not as an attachment to here. Okay. Other attachments, if you do a link to a URL, this could be to a website address. Okay. So I have a planner board where I plan these speaking events. I have which ones I want to speak at when they're scheduled. I have a bucket called scheduled. Then I have one that says call for speakers, and then one where I've submitted, and then where I'm waiting for a response. So my buckets actually follow a process. And as each event progresses through that process, I move it to the next bucket. All right, you can group it by bucket. You can group it by assigned to, which is really nice because then you can reassign things. So let's say Christy's leaving the project, I can reassign just by dragging things over to there. And you can group it by progress. So you're like, oh no, this one is, this one's been done. This one's in progress. A lot easier than opening one card at a time. Due dates. Due dates are a little bit different. The due dates are driven by the dates that are already on the card. So I have late and I have future. If I change this one, let's say to tomorrow, due date of the 20th, I now have a bucket called tomorrow. So, and then you'll have next week. So depending on what the dates are on the tasks, you'll see those buckets. And if you don't have a bucket, then change the date and it'll create a bucket. All right, labels. I love the labels because it's a secondary way of sorting. So I've seen these with the Kanban boards, like level of effort, how, you know, sometimes people use different currency, you know, this is, you know, 5, this is a 5, this is a 3, whatever those are, and how you decide to prioritize your tasks and assign a level of effort to them. I've seen the labels used for that. There used to be only 6 colors. Now there's 25, so you can create labels, and each planner board has its own set of buckets, or I'm sorry, own set of labels. And then by priority. So if this is important, this one's urgent, you can, again, drag and drop within those. So how does that fit in with teams when we're trying to collaborate with each other? Oh, this is another one. I'm glad that kind of popped up randomly. I'm not sure why. On the ... I like to change under the plan settings, give them a different background or something, because this white on white is just like, ugh, I can't see anything. But it also lets me know which board I'm in, kind of visually which board I'm working in at any given time. These are suggested, and you can't, as far as I know, create new backgrounds yourself. These are kind of standardized. If anybody knows if you can customize those, tell me. All right. Okay, so planner, how does that fit in with teams? Again, teams is the roll-up view of everything. So when I'm working in my team, I can add the plan to, this is Nestor, and he's not on that team, so let me bring Megan back up. They used to all be on all the teams, or they've changed their demo environment recently. All right, so if I want to see my the planner board, if I go to design, you'll see here's the project tracking. So here are the planner boards. You can add them simply by using the plus sign, adding a tab. The tab is called Task by Planner and To Do. It used to be green and look like Planner. Now they made it purple and they kind of generic. So you can put to-do lists or planner, put it up there if you need to, and add those plans to yours. So again, who needs to work together? What are they working on? How are they going to get that work done? How are they going to collaborate? They're going to collaborate their tasks. They're going to collaborate using the files. And they may have other things like lists and items like that. I believe this one is a list. So if you're not familiar with the new, they're calling it the new lists. It's actually been SharePoint lists and been around for more than 20 years. But, you know, welcome to my world. I love the lists in Planner. You can create a list to track tasks as well, or content. I'm going to click save on this one. And there's a bunch of templates. Issue tracker, event itinerary, asset manager, recruiter manager. The one that is the tasks is a work progress tracker, or the content scheduler. I'm using this one right now. My daughter's helping me with social media, so I'm letting her know what my posts are, and she goes out there and does her magic, so I don't have to. There's a couple new ones. Loans, that one I hadn't seen before. Patience is a new one too. So they're coming out with some new templates. You can also, as an organization, create templates as well and deploy them. And this just allows you to quickly create a list that tracks that content. So if I do work progress tracker, maybe I'm going to use this one, call it the launch event, and puts it on a tab, keeping in mind this is a great starting point, but this is a full-blown SharePoint list that you can customize if you want to. So I'm just going to go the backwards way into the SharePoint site. and show you in the site contents. There is, here's the design tasks, here's design ideas, here's the launch event that I just created, and I can customize this list. I can create views, I can add new fields if I need to, new columns, whatever you need to do to customize that list. All right, so collaboration, use the tools, not just the ones that are the low-hanging fruit that are on the left-hand rail. Build out your team space for each of your channels and give them the tools that they need to get their job done all in one place. All right. When you think 90 minutes, you're like, ooh, that's a long time. And then eventually it's really not a long time. All right, data and reporting. This is another big one. If you're not using Power BI, data is any set of information. So those tasks, that's data as well. But when we're talking about data and reporting, when you are part of a team, you are also part of the data and reporting. It creates a Power BI dashboard. So if I click the little plus here and go to Power BI, there might be data. Here's the Mark8 project team data. Here's the sales and marketing data, or my workspace. Keeping in mind, these are security trimmed. So if I take a sales and marketing workspace and put it here, the people that are viewing it would have to have the same permission. So I can't make a mess out of that. So if I want to see the consumer website traffic and click save, you can add that content here. So data and reporting, instead of, I could go out to Power BI and go to that workspace and look for it, but I want people to work where it's easy. Give them one place. So I'm going to add all that content and allow them to collaborate and review that content from here. All right. Any questions or comments so far? How do I sync my planner boards to someplace else like RSS feed or my OneDrive or Outlook? Okay, Sydney, you're hitting a hot button there for me because this is a thing. This has actually come up recently. This question people keep asking me. The planner boards are they're a list, but it's in a database, but it's not easy to sync it anywhere else because I want to see that content in Outlook. To do is the app that rolls up all of your Outlook, and I just did this in my my task management series that's on my blog of managing from Outlook. So to do is a roll-up view of all of the things that you have tagged or flagged for follow-up in your email and any of the tasks that are in your planner board. So here's all the planner tasks that are assigned to me. So you can see them all in one place here. And what I kind of like about this is here's everything I need to get done, but you can add this to your day, mark it as important, and then add this one to my day. So that even though this is the entire slate of things I need to get done, but I want to plan out today, I'm going to say add it to my day. And then when I go to my day, here's the things I need to get done. So it's kind of your way to filter out everything because it can get overwhelming and just focus on what you can manage and get done in one day, right? The other one is those remember I told you those are a SharePoint list. If I go into the site contents again and open that design tasks, get ready for the ooh-ah moment. In classic SharePoint, we used to be able to sync these. There are 3 different list types if you start from the right template. Contacts, tasks, and calendars that sync with Outlook. So if you're more of an Outlook-centric person like me, I manage everything out of my Outlook. I want it all in there. So if you have to return to classic in SharePoint here, and then return to classic. There it goes. On the list tab, if you're able to, now that see this one, the way it was created was not from a task or calendar or contact template. So if you start from SharePoint and create the list from here, and then this should light up and it will synchronize to Outlook for you. Okay. So hopefully that'll help you. All right. Yay, 50 gold stars. I like gold stars. Those make us all happy, right? All right, so data and reporting as far as collaboration. Now, creating content is kind of in the same space, right? Our documents, we already kind of talked about that. Where you create your content is up to you and what you're trying to accomplish. So if I'm going to work on something myself, I don't want anybody else in it, I'm going to go out to OneDrive and I'm going to create a new, let's say I'm going to do a new PowerPoint presentation. And this is going to be the M400 launch event. All right, couple of little pro tips for PowerPoint. Loving these new design ideas because I am not a graphic designer and it makes me actually look like I know what I'm doing. I can add new slides. And, you know, here's feature one. If you have a set of bullet points, I encourage you to change your view and go into in the desktop version. They have an outline view, and it lets you tab and shift tab and create. It automatically creates your slides. It's pretty cool. All right, so this one, let's say I want to share this file. I want Nestor to help me with this file. I don't want anybody else involved in it yet. From here, I don't even have to do it from Teams or chat. I can share the file and say Nestor, and then click send. All right, so he just got the link. So we're going to go over to Nestor and go to his email. There's two ways he's notified. He should get a pop-up. And let's see, let me push it. Okay, I should have gotten a notification, maybe taken a second. The other way is if you don't want to keep those emails around indefinitely with the links to the files that somebody shared with you, in your OneDrive, there's the notification. Under the shared link, you have the shared with you or shared by you. So if I want to shared with me, here's that file that Megan just created and shared with me. So I can open this from here and we can do what's called co-authoring. So we can edit the document at the exact same time, real time. It's a little harder when I'm using these remote environments to kind of show you the split screen to see it side by side. But I can see Megan is working on this slide. I'm going to add a new one, call it feature 2. Insert a picture. Lots of very cool new stuff in PowerPoint. PowerPoint, I swear, for the longest time did not evolve. It was like the same year after year. They might add one little thing or another. Now it's done some pretty cool stuff. So under stock images, I want to point these out now. It's not just images. These are all free. You don't have to worry about copyrights and all of that. We also have like cutout people. So if you want to put some personalization in there, stickers, and illustrations. So these are recent ads, and you can, if it's an illustration, you can actually recolor this and be whatever your theme color is. Okay, so we have our features. So here's Nestor working on that same document. If I go back as Megan, I can see Nestor's working here. So we're creating this content together, and we did it from OneDrive because I just need Nestor's help. I don't need everybody else in here yet, right? After we're done, so I'm going to get Nestor out of there. So he's going to have to close that down. All right, so we're going to get him out of that file. And now I may want to move or rename because I just left it as presentation. I'm going to rename it and put it in the, this is the M400 launch. All right, so now I'm ready for the team to see this. I'm just kind of taking you through a little life of a document. So that's the M400 launch. Now that everybody else is ready to see it, I'm going to move it to, and I'm going to send it over to the sales and marketing team. And I'll just put it in the general folder and move it here. Now, I may be asking other people to help me with that document. So we're still creating content together. It's just who do I need to work with at that particular time. I just need a Nestor. We're ready for the team to see it. Move it over to the team. It's no longer in my OneDrive. But if I go out to just even to PowerPoint, it tracks that file no matter where I sent it to. So here is, let's see if it showed up. Here's my recent. And again, the crawl didn't happen, but if I go out there and search for M400 files, it's going to find that, yeah, the crawl didn't happen yet. Demo environments only happen every so often. So it should show up in the search and I'd be able to find it no matter where I put it. Okay, so don't forget search. Search keeps track of things when you can't. And believe me, I call it residual gestational brain damage. After I had kids, I swear I can't remember anything. And that search saves my life. It's like, where did I file that away? Okay, so creating documents, presentations, forms, and surveys. The reason I like to bring up forms and surveys is there's different places where the content is created. So if I go into all apps, we use Microsoft Forms. Now keep in mind, the forms are stored in your storage. Let me say that again. When you create a form from Forms, it creates it in your storage. So if you create the form and you leave the company, guess what happens? Your OneDrive goes away, that form goes away. Okay, so it's not really in your OneDrive, but it's in your storage stuff, right? So if you're going to create a form, there's a couple of ways. If you're going to collaborate with somebody, I'm going to start a new one from here. Let's say this is a travel request. Request your trip here. And I'm just going to add a date, departure, return date, and maybe I want to say hotel preference. Oops, that's not a date. Add new choice, hotel preference. All right, so we're going to say Marriott or Hilton and add another option. Okay, so I just created 3. Now I need somebody else to work on this with me. My option is to share this file. So I'm going to go to the settings. And right now, only the people in my organization can respond to it. If I need to open it up outside the organization, I can here. But I can't share this file with anyone else. I'm going to click here. If you say click or share to collaborate or share as a template. If somebody comes in and says, hey, I really like your form, can I use it too? Maybe you don't want them messing yours up or changing yours, then you would go in and share this as a template and then they would be able to create it from there. So I'm going to copy that one. And if I send it to Nestor, wait, am I Nestor? Who am I at right now? Nope, I'm Megan. Okay, making sure. All right, link to collaborate. And send that off. Oops, shoot. Kind of helps if you include the link, right? All right, and we'll go back out now and get a link to, so that's a link to duplicate. This is the link to collaborate. And I'm just going to chat that one to him. So how does that look from Nestor's side? So we're going to bring up Nestor. And I get the little notification. Go to Teams in my chat and click on there. We are now real time working on this document, but who owns it? It's still in my storage. It's still, if I win the lottery and run away, this file still lives in my storage. So when you're creating these forms, and it's best to create them from the group. because when you create a group, you create a shared storage, and those groups are based from teams. So if you have a form that you think your whole team is going to need, let's say it's the Comtoso marketing team, I'm going to add a form from the group instead, from the general, and create a new form. So it says create a shared form that your team can edit and see the results. Let's say this is the travel request and save it. Now everybody can edit and change and work on this together and then publish it and see the results. So this creating that form where you create it is very important. If it's going to be something that could live beyond you, create it from a team or a group. Okay. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. All right. So we talked about this a little bit. So when you're knowing that how the tools are that fit together, designing those successful teams, it comes down to who needs to work together, what are they working on, and how are they going to get that work done. Right, so when you're working, I just want to reiterate this in our last few minutes together here. Managing your files in Office 365. OneDrive is like that file cabinet that sits underneath your desk. You have the permission, you have the key to the drawer, you get to decide how it's organized. You put your files in there, your hanging files, your manila folders, you put them in that drawer and you get to manage those. Now, if these files live beyond you, this is something we're going to talk about in documentation strategy. How do you make sure that when you win the lottery and run away and are no longer in that job or at that organization, that those files get transferred to the person that's going to need them? So that's something you need to decide when you're looking at what goes in your OneDrive. Do you own it, and should you control it? And even at what stage do you no longer own it? So that presentation that I did for the M400 launch, I owned it to begin with because I was in charge of creating it. I asked somebody to help me with it, but eventually I don't own it anymore. Somebody else, the marketing team, owns that document. So I'm going to move it over there. So OneDrive is your file cabinet. SharePoint is that file cabinet that's out in the hallway that everybody in the team has access to. There is a key. Whoever is the owner of that group or the team or the SharePoint site has the key to the cabinet and can decide who can get in there. So that, when you're putting files that everybody needs, you're going to put them in SharePoint. And remember, nothing actually lives in Teams. It's either in OneDrive or it's in SharePoint. When you're working in Teams, chat is OneDrive. Channels, files in the channels are in SharePoint, and those are by default, they go in the document library. That is the standard document library and filed under a folder in the document library. Now, I don't agree with that structure. Personally, had I designed it, each channel would have had their own drawer, but I don't design it. I don't make the products. I don't know why that decision was made. So. All right, so the 3 C's of Microsoft Teams are communication, collaboration, and creating content together. All right, here's my information again, if you want to jot that down or take a screenshot there, and then I'll put up the QR code if you want to have a free trial of our PowerBytes training portal. I'm happy to provide that for you if you would like to subscribe. Part of that questionnaire is like asking if you would like to receive communications when we're doing events like these, or if, my Tip Tuesdays, things like that. I am very big. I don't like to be spammed, and do unto others as they do unto you. So I will never use your information or sell it or give it to somebody else. And if you opt out, you opt out. And I totally understand that. We get so much information out all the time, right? All right, so let me go ahead and get that other slide back up for you. Oops. That didn't work.
Shari, if you have a chance, could you throw the links that you just had up there in the chat so that they...
You betcha. Okay.
And does anybody else have any other questions too? as we are, as she's. Oh, perfect. That's the Power Bios one.
So there's the link to the survey. It's just a quick form asking you for your basic information.
And just so you know, Scott threw something in there too.
Which one?
So Scott said, where do I find how to copy a full chat to the clipboard to paste elsewhere?
A full chat out of Teams?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Scott, can you maybe come off mute and give a little bit more description? Are you talking about like a full thread? Are you talking about individual part? What are you talking about?
Or a meeting chat. So this is an ongoing thing because people I work with the federal government, and several of the agencies, they have like a 7-day delete policy. So they don't have, the whole point of Teams was to have persistent chat. Yeah, until your IT department kills it, so, and they take it away. So that, the chat is not meant to be long living, but sometimes we do need to capture that. I use OneNote for all of that. And there is a option to forward a conversation to Outlook and send it to yourself. That's kind of my little backwards hack, but they're not a way to, so from the conversations, let me go back in here. So like if I want to capture this conversation, I can highlight it all, copy it, and then put it in
Word
OneNote.
document, Outlook, whatever, yeah.
Yeah. I like OneNote because it's searchable and I can share that with other people, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
but then it does the timestamps and everything else associated to it. Yeah.
Right. It's not pretty. So there's no good way to export unless they surprise me all the time. I'm waiting for an export.
Yeah, that's not yet. And I don't remember seeing it on the roadmap anytime soon. So I know it's a big ask, and a lot of companies are asking it because of those things. And I know, especially for Danielle was saying they have a 24-hour delete protocol or retention. I know that's crazy. But the company I was in before was 90 days, and that was our number one question. How do I take that content that's in there, that's in a thread, and get it into someplace else to retain it after those 90 days? And my answer to that was get it in the OneNote. Take the nuts and bolts of what that thread was. When it gets to be that point where it's ready to be moved over, do it, right? But you're going to lose it after 90 days.
Or, yeah, because it's just gone, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
So here's the share to Outlook option under the, right? So you can share this, but it's just the conversation. It's not the whole wall. And you can, so let me just send, and then I send it to myself.
Yep.
So,
and I know there was, and I think it's coming out. There are some capabilities to be able to take things and maybe move it to do action items for thread, like individual thread pieces. That's another option. You have the ability to be able to create like a Power Automate to be able to do just an individual action. So that's something that would help. But again, that's an individual piece within a thread.
Yeah, so this is what it looks like when it comes over. And then from here, you can send it to OneNote too. So it's another way to get it into OneNote in a little cleaner format where it doesn't have all those timestamps and the funky things. Yeah, agreed. That seems like a really long process for something that should be a whole lot easier. So what you're talking about is flagging in To Do. If you click the little ... and under more options, it does have a create a task now. Why they have buried that 3 clicks over, I have no idea.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that needs to be a little bit more available, but I like that feature.
Yeah. So create a task. Now that's going to go into my to-do list. If you have multiple to-dos, here's the tasks. So that's my tasks, not like the tasks for the
that group. Absolutely. Right. Yep.
Anybody else have an idea for that? Because I'm open. I love learning new things. We obviously will never know it all. And you all use these products in ways we don't even think about. So
that is so true.
Yep. Is there more than one trash can? There's actually 3 levels of the trash can, 2 that are accessible to the users. So if you go out to, let's say, OneDrive, here's your recycle bin. And then if it's missing from here, you have a second stage recycle bin. Now, the thing to keep in mind is, and it's the same thing for SharePoint, is that your recycle bins are either capacity driven or time driven or both. So what I've seen is people, they take their entire H drive, M drive, and they dump it into OneDrive, and they realize, oh, well, that made a mess or it didn't work, and then they delete it all. You just filled up the recycle bin for everybody and pushed everybody else's stuff out. So yeah, it's in a perfect world, yeah, but yeah, there are two stages. So if I were to delete this one, or it automatically deletes after 30 days or when the recycle bin is full, then I can go to the second stage recycle bin and recover that document, maybe. There it is, and restore it. So yes. And are you saying that if somebody syncs and deletes and they shouldn't have? Could be. All right. So Matt continues to be used effectively with external companies to work on shared files together. That is collaborate between separate Microsoft tenants. Yes, technologically, it can happen. Is it within your company policy, and do they have it configured correctly? Do they have it turned on? That's always the question.
Yeah, and the experience for that too is it's very difficult when you get a notification in the other one. It doesn't show up on the left-hand rail like you would expect it to, right? And so you actually have to switch tenants to do it. However, on the really coming up soon roadmap, there's something called shared channels, which is going to make it a lot easier. But go back to what Shari just said. It's dependent upon if that's being opened by your IT, because there might be some security considerations, things like that, that has to happen prior to it. But those things, yeah, it is possible.
Well, and the other thing, government, they're way far behind on most of the features. They have a whole nother level of vetting that has to be done. Microsoft and the government have to come to a handshake that they meet the security requirements. Like I said, I did the Special Operations Command and like high level, and they it's like, why did you even give this to them? They can't do anything.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Yeah, and so Sydney was saying, going back to the recycle bin thing, most people don't have access to the second bin. You're right, especially if you're in a SharePoint site and you're not the owner of that SharePoint site. But in your OneDrive, you are the owner to that. You should be able to access the second, that second stage recycle bin, again, for your OneDrive, but more than likely not at the Teams, or I should say the SharePoint site.
Now, so what I say was when I throw something away, it goes in the waste basket underneath my desk. I could pull it back out really easy, smooth it out, right? Otherwise, it may go out to, once it goes to the dumpster after the second page recycle bin, it goes to the dumpster. And IT can go dumpster dive for you, but they will never be your friend. They will not like you for having to do that. And
they will maybe do it once. That's about it.
Yeah, and if you have a problem child that somebody does that a lot, then you're gonna, they
you're
can
get on that blacklist.
Yeah, it's ugly. It's ugly.
It is. I would agree.
All right.
All right. I think we slowed down on our questions. So thank you, Shari, on that information. Excellent.
The next one start right away. Do I have a little break?
Give me, take a couple minutes, please. Because I need to, number one, pick a winner. And it's not going to be somebody from previous, because we've had a couple people who've actually kind of won a couple times, unfortunately, different sessions. But it looks like Adam Wethram, I don't think you've won yet. Let me just make sure. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a come off mute. Have you won yet, Adam? I'm just making sure. I'm thinking he hasn't. All right, so Adam got the $25 gift card for day, and I will make sure you get that. And Shari, thank you so much for that information.
Yeah, you think, I'm never going to be able to fill that time, and then it's crazy.
It is. All right, I'm going to throw the survey information in there. Please make sure you go out there and tell Shari how it went. And then also don't forget about the Power Bytes thing. Make sure you get that in there. I'm going to stop the recording for this session. I will start it again after that and take why don't you take like 5 minutes, Shari, if you need to.